Hello and welcome to BioRules video lessons. Today you're going to have a short, quick lesson about productivity. So, what the hell is productivity? Let's start with a simple chemical formula. Carbon dioxide together with water using light becomes organic material, glucose and oxygen. This is the formula for photosynthesis. So ultimately, plants are capable of getting carbon dioxide from the environment, are capable of getting water from the environment, they get light from the environment, and they are capable of building organic material in the way of glucose that later is being used to build everything else on the planet. This here is the ultimate productivity, basically photosynthesis. The opposite of photosynthesis is when an organism spends that organic material. And they can do that for growing, for doing chemical reactions, for innumerous reasons. You are doing that at this very moment just for paying attention in this movie. You are breaking organic material into CO2 and water, releasing energy to do whatever you want, and that process is called cell respiration. And ultimately, cell respiration releases heat to the atmosphere. Okay? So, when you talk about productivity, it's not enough for us to go there and see how much plants are in a certain place. Because actually the plants are the ones that are going to be getting the sunlight. So the sunlight is used to assemble carbons, putting carbons together, making organic material. They accumulate these carbons, making biomass. So just for us to go there and measure the biomass is the first step for us to understand productivity. But it's not the last one. But let's start from the beginning. What the hell is biomass? So biomass is the dry mass of living organisms. Why the dry mass? Because water may vary drastically among species. Trees might have 50% water, while a jellyfish may have 9% water. So, because water varies drastically between organisms, we measure dry mass. The dry mass tells us how much organic material is going to be in there. And the organic material has a very decent relationship with the amount of energy that will be in that place. So we are going to be using the biomass to estimate the amount of energy that is in a certain place. However, as I told you before, this is not so simple because you need to dry the material. So for us to know the biomass, we cannot get simply everything in an ecosystem and try it because we're going to be killing everything. So we sample. We get one organism, we get a piece of an organism. You don't need to kill an entire tree to know its biomass. You can get a branch and you estimate the biomass of that branch. So we sample an organism. We get a small one from a very big population, or we get a piece of an organism and we dry them in an oven at 60 degrees Celsius centigrade. Okay? We leave it there to dry, and when you make that dry, we then measure the dry mass and you divide that by the wet mass. When you do that, we are capable of extrapolating how much of a wet mass is going to be representing dry mass. So if you have, for example, a jellyfish that is 90% water, when you dry it, the dry mass will be, let's say, 1 kilogram. But you see that the wet mass was 10 kilograms, so you know it's 1 to 10. So you can do that to extrapolate how much is going to be the dry mass of a certain system. And actually, the dry mass is also good for us to estimate the amount of energy. Because if we burn the dry mass in a calorimeter, like that one in the picture, we would be able to estimate how much energy is there in the mass. And as it happens that for most of organisms, for most organic material, the amount of energy is pretty similar no matter what you're being composed. So if you have 1 kilogram of dry mass in a jellyfish, that you have roughly the same amount of energy of 1 kilogram in a plant, an amoeba, or a human being. Okay? So, knowing how much biomass in a system is one way of us knowing the productivity, but actually the gross production is the total production, how much was produced in a certain place. So in the case of a plant, how much energy was taken by the way of photosynthesis? Actually, it's very difficult for us to measure that because when we see a plant that plant is there, it did photosynthesis, but it already did other chemical reactions in its body, has already wasted energy in the way of respiration. So actually, when you go there and you measure a plant, what you are actually seeing is the net production, how much energy is left over there after you discount respiration. So net production, the total energy left on the ecosystem after you discount the energy is spent by respiration. Okay, so if we represent this as gross production and we have that purple one over there showing respiration, the net production is what was left after you discount respiration. When we get a tree and we measure the tree, what we actually have there is the result of the net production, because the respiration is putting things away from it. Okay, so there is a formula: net production equals gross production minus respiration. So for you to find the net production, you get the gross production, subtract respiration, or if you want to know the gross production in a certain place, you just get the net production and you add the respiration. Okay, in either way, if you have two of those values, you can find the third one. Respiration is reasonably easy to estimate. Net production is reasonably easy to estimate. So the gross production is the one that's most calculated, because if you have the net and respiration, you just add those two and you're going to be finding the gross production. Okay, let's see this in a real ecosystem representation here. You have a gross production. This gross production is 52,334 kilojoules per square meter per year. Okay, that's a certain amount over there. Part of this will go away in respiration. Part of this will be the net production. In plants, the amount of respiration that was put away as heat was 28,000, so roughly half the amount, and the plant's body was 24. So in this case here, more or less 50% was net production, 50% went to respiration. Plants, they're very economic in the use of energy. But these plants, it might be eaten, but not all of it. So part will stay as a storage, but part will be eaten by other animals. So in this case here, about 18,000 was eaten by animals. Yes, animal eats lots of plants. And from that feeding, part of that feeding will result in respiration that will end up in heating in the animal. And animals are not economic. They spend a lot of heat. They spend a lot of energy by doing so respiration. And actually the animal body will be a tiny little portion of what was there before. So this here shows us the flow of energy here. Now reinforce the idea that heat is a huge amount of escape of energy from the ecosystem that got here, entered and went all the way over there. Okay, so this here is representing the productivity, gross production, net production. Okay, take your time now. There's a quick quiz. Have fun.